What's going on, everybody? Happy Monday. Good to see everybody. Host Shad Dales, TDR Traded Black podcast, presented by Dutchie. Lots to get into here today, including Congress holding a hearing about alleged Chinese-linked illicit cannabis grows across the U.S. later this week. So we're going to dive into that. Anthony Coniglio is going to join us as well. Lightweight day here today. We saw MSOS retract a little bit, light volume. So like Dan, the chart guy, said on Friday, if we don't get an announcement, look at that resistance level that's going on right now between the 380 and 390 gap. So lots to look into. I know a lot of people are antsy right now. They're hoping for an announcement relatively soon. We don't know if it's coming, but the longer this goes, as we know how this industry performs when no news happens. We see a slow drip start to happen day in and day out, which we're seeing right now, and some volatility. So let's welcome in AV here on a Monday. And a lot of the stuff that Dan was telling us on Monday is happening, or should say on Friday, is starting to happen here on Monday. But this is what happens when, you're hoping to get an announcement and people are just waiting, right?
Yeah, it's a waiting game. It's a waiting game. By the way, I'm just going to pop this one comment up because that could not be any more true. If you're in stocks and they go up 3-4x, you put stop losses on the damn things, you stick to your guns, and if they go down, you don't make an emotional decision. You just let it go. You're already in the money. You're already in profit. And he's correct. That's really how it should be done, especially in this environment, unless you want to just ride them all the way to the other side. But yeah, it's uncertainty. I don't want to give excuses, but one of the worst things that could have possibly happened was the WSJ and CNN leak that then led to the question on that Monday morning about cannabis rescheduling, which then caused everybody to have preconceived notions on accelerated timelines on this. If that never happened and Trump never made those comments, we would still be in the frame of mind of, well, rescheduling is coming. We just really don't know when. It could be sometime after or before the recess, and going into
good point.
Going into the, I don't want to say going into the midterms, because that kind of just alludes to could be potentially next year. But if those two things never happened, there wouldn't be this just angst around it potentially happening now.
Well worded. Angst is best described in the investor community right now. People just waiting impatiently. And I get it. It is the tough part as far as the waiting. Last night, we also saw in futures, MSO spike close to 10%. Somebody put through a block of about 85,000 shares at 460. Not sure what happened there, but there was some back and forth going on Twitter today outlining that. And somebody might have had a fat finger and it got filled. So it looked like it might have been a mistake. And he's holding that now. But did you see that by chance?
Yeah, I saw it. Somebody fat fingered an order and sent it up. I think it was 9.98% shortly after hours started.
Yeah,
sucks, but you got to use a little more caution than that.
No news, no rescheduling announcement, nothing fundamentally is driving it. Just this huge order that, in a lot of ways, distorted this tape. But yikes! Yeah, I hear you, and I think a lot of people start speculating: are we going to get something announced this week? But somebody also put in the fact of this Charlie Kirk thing. If it's pushed things back in the event that if there is an announcement, and 100%, I know a lot of people think that this Charlie Kirk thing didn't have some sort of effect. 100% it has, with the way they've lowered the flags at half mast. And then you also have to factor in that this funeral is not going to be until Sunday, the 21st, where the Cardinals play. Huge funeral at this football stadium, but it's controversial. I'm not going to get into it, but there's a lot of people looking at this in a lot of ways right now, but that obviously is going to have some effect if there's any kind of announcements pertaining to other things outside of that. That's going to be delayed probably a couple of weeks, but I have no idea on timeline wise, but I'm sure that has something to do with it too. But let's get into today's podcast. Welcome in the CEO of NewLake Capital, which trades in the OTCQB NLCP, Anthony Coniglio. Back to the podcast.
Hi, guys.
September.
You going?
Happy September. Happy Monday.
I know. Angst is what Anthony just said to us.
Good word.
I think that's a very good word on what we're feeling right now, is it not?
Yeah. Well, it depends on one's. Yes, we're all feeling angst. So let me just agree with that. But there's a phrase we all learn early on in our business careers: hope's not a strategy. So
very good point.
Right. Most of the people we talk to, most of the people you have on your show, they're building their business without reform. Yes, we all want it. And yes, there is that angst for it.
Yeah.
But don't build your life around that. And when have we ever gotten anything out of Washington, D.C., quote unquote, on time? So there should be no surprises here.
Yeah. Just got a text
Correct.
message from a few people, but High Tide up 20%. It's just showing right now, Anthony Varrell up over 20%, their latest earnings. We're going to have Raj Grover on tomorrow at 1:30 our time to do a pre-record, and we're going to push that out probably end of day tomorrow. So Raj Grover coming on, and good for them. Another good earnings report. But have you ever met Raj, Anthony Coniglio?
We've never had a chance to meet. No, would love to. So Raj, I look forward to catching you at one of the future conferences in person.
Well, I know you guys both spend a lot of time in Europe as well, but we actually got a call from the ICBC crew. They're looking to get us over there for next year, but should be an interesting time over there because like you said last year, there was a lot of optimism in the German market and the European market, was there not?
Yes, a lot of optimism in the German market. We know that that market is growing significantly.
Yeah.
There's optimism across Europe that the rest of Europe will follow Germany's lead. Switzerland program getting launched, other countries experimenting like the Netherlands. There's, I think, significant optimism across that sector, but they suffer from a capital holiday the way this U.S. sector is suffering as well. So more optimism for growth, but some of the similar struggles.
Yeah. Well, look, we look at a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of conversations going on. Look, Trump made the announcement about having a decision in a few weeks last month. We also saw everything that's been transpiring in Texas. There's stuff building in Florida again. We see the stuff in Pennsylvania. We see RFK Jr. and Pam Bondi in Chicago last week, cracking down on illicit vapes. Now we also have Congress. They're about to hold a hearing on alleged Chinese-linked illicit cannabis growers across the U.S. This is going to take place later this week. So as much as we describe everything as angst and we want this announcement, to me, I'm looking at big picture here, and it just looks like there's a lot of moving parts where the groundwork is being laid for a potential announcement. That is what's encouraging to me more than anything, which is why I've said a number of times this does feel different this time. Do you agree with that?
I do. And I described it earlier for somebody. I described it earlier today for somebody that it's I call it the mosaic of indicators that are giving us this kind of confidence. Like each one of these events, such as that congressional hearing later this week, in my opinion, is another piece in that mosaic of indicators. You could have looked at the large crackdown on the facility in California 3 or 4 months ago, where they utilized state police, local police, and the National Guard, and it was a Chinese cartel. We talked on one of your shows probably 2 months ago about the DEA's report to Congress and the fact that they're focusing on transnational criminal organizations, TCOs. We've talked also about the National Intelligence Threat Assessment, where the number one threat to the country, according to the NSA, the CIA, et cetera, is these TCOs. We know that Susan Collins has been out there talking about the Chinese cartels in Maine. And we could go on and on. Each one of these is a piece in the mosaic that I think paints that picture that this administration will get behind the reform. We just need the pieces to continue to fall into place. I think the Pam Bondi, you alluded to the press conference last week. I think that's part of it. I think that's part of cracking down on the illicit product. I don't know that it's going to come together in a nice, neat package the way we would all want it to, but I think we're going to get a decent amount of what we're looking for, whether it be on cracking down on those TCOs, those Chinese and Mexican cartels, but also maybe some access to banking, maybe a directive that Congress should get out of the way and pass some legislation around safe banking, and that the DEA and the DOJ will complete the rescheduling of cannabis. So I'm optimistic because every one of these pieces seems to help paint that picture of reform.
Agreed.
Do you think on the backs of, let's say, a rescheduling announcement, it adds fuel to the fire to go further with safe states? The MORE Act has gotten more momentum and reared its head in the last couple of weeks. Do you think that it kind of just gives way to just greater reform moving forward?
I think the potential is absolutely there. I would be surprised if we only got an announcement around we're rescheduling and there wasn't quickly some follow on or some add to that there was going to be a push for added reforms. Because if this administration really wants to eliminate the illicit business, really wants to get rid of childhood access to these products and make sure that products are age gated properly, you would want that more comprehensive commentary to say, we're going to address hemp derived THC products that aren't age gated. We're going to address the Chinese cartels. We're going to address rescheduling. We're going to address debanking. They all feel like they kind of go together. Is it one big, beautiful press conference? Probably not. Is it a series of actions over a short period of time? Probably so. And this
we're already
takes
seeing that
time.
now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, and that's why I say it's this mosaic. I think we're starting to see some of these precursor pieces around Congress saying we had a hearing. We want to get at this issue. Here's one way for us to get there.
It's a good point, because if you have this meeting this week, you probably could see a press conference pertaining to this, let's say end of week or even next week. But that's part of the whole process of why does it make sense for this administration come out and actually announce a rescheduling process? Yes, it's overwhelmingly by the American people, but this is, to me, all groundwork that needs to be laid. Okay, you're making this decision. Why? And I think that there's some actual ammo that they could back up to, which is, what was it, the number, Anthony? Was it 600,000 vapes? That's
600,000 illicit vapes.
Illicit vapes, yep.
In Chicago, which that's a drop in the bucket. I mean, there's probably millions and millions and millions from coast to coast. I mean, when I lived in Miami, you used to see just every major brand in California from a vape standpoint was just on the street, just everywhere.
Yeah.
There's tons of that counterfeit illicit stuff all over the place.
In the past, if you were to ask me, is this more about politics than actual law enforcement? I think in a day and age, this has a lot to do with law enforcement. Don't you think, AC?
Oh, I definitely think so.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. I mean, go right back to those national threat assessments. The top of this administration's list is cracking down on the cartels. And remember, we talked a few months ago about, in these reports, they talk about at these illicit marijuana grows, the human trafficking and the use of pesticides and how it's harming soil and communities and farmers. So there is, again, I go back to the mosaic analogy. There are all of these little pieces that come together. And I think it's about that enforcement. And this administration for sure wants to be viewed as being strong in terms of enforcing the law, particularly as it comes to these cartels.
I think the optics are going to be purely centered around law enforcement. I think he's going to have I think Trump is going to have top law enforcement officials on deck to co-sign what they're doing as far as cannabis reform goes. He's going to make sure that the optics are law and order, and this is like very artfully done. Like I said, I don't think it's going to be about cannabis. I don't think he cares about cannabis, but I think he cares about stomping out the TCOs, getting the illicit market out of our country, closing up the borders, and legitimizing the industry that we have domestically. And I think law and order is going to be a big piece of that.
And timing, if I can, I just jump in on timing. We've talked again on the show that we've always, over here at NewLake, we've always had the view that it was going to be back half of the year, because the first half of the year needed to be focused on other priorities in this administration, like foreign policy, economic policy, immigration policy, etc. So it's not surprising that we're finding ourselves in September, where this administration is starting to focus on, call it a second tier, third tier, whatever tier you want to call this category of policymaking. They're now focusing on this. And I think it's important we get it done by year end, because if we don't get it done by year end, I heard one of you talking earlier about pivoting into the midterms. I think you then start to really get into a difficult calendar in early 26, as most of DC and most of the political apparatus focuses on midterms.
It doesn't make
the thing is too with the thing is too with people saying it's a midterm issue. Yes, they might want cannabis to be a midterm issue, but that's not rescheduling. Rescheduling has no implications on the legislators and politicians that are going to be running for office. If they want to make it a midterm issue, you reschedule it, give them cover fire from S1 to S3, and then run a home with SAFE and states and other pieces of legislation that actually give them wins that they can hang on the wall.
You think here's the I'm just one more thing, Chad, just to avoid optimistically, I'm going to admit this is a very optimistic lens I have on. One could argue that politically, if you get it done now, and you give the law enforcement the tools, you could have 2026 being a series of perp walks about how this administration is tough on crime and has accomplished its number one goal, which is to stomp out these Chinese cartels. And you could just see on the nightly news this role of of perp walks demonstrating that hard on crime type of posture.
When you look at some of the stuff that's happening right now, do you not believe if and when there's a rescheduling announcement, there'd be more than just that announcement of rescheduling, that there's all this stuff on a crackdown of the illicit market in addition to why they're rescheduling? Like, do you think that all happens when they actually make an announcement? I don't know whether this comes out through a press release, but they're going to have to follow up eventually and speak on it. But when that day and time does come, I got to believe this is all part of the ecosystem that's going to be actually outlined and communicated. Do you not?
I definitely believe that. And let's just visualize that press conference. I know a lot of people that are in the industry talk about following the science, and I totally get that. And I agree with that. But do we really think Pam Bondi is going to get up there and say, we've followed the science and the Biden administration told us that the science is that it should be rescheduled. So we listened to the Biden administration and we rescheduled? No way. It's going to be, in my opinion, it'll be crafted into the narrative of this administration. As Anthony pointed out, I think it's going to be around that law and order narrative. And the science, it may be the vehicle that it gets there, but that's going to be a passenger in this vehicle of reform. It's all about law and order. And that's why I keep going back to these TCOs and these enforcement actions. This is a tool for the federal government to better get at the illicit activity around marijuana.
Yeah. Or it's done. It's swept under the rug. It happens. We move forward, and they just continue with these busts and the crackdown on illicit, and just keep that engine rolling. And they're not correlated. I mean, they very much could do that, because I don't know if they're willing to publicly admit that ending prohibition will in turn help to extinguish the illicit market. I don't think it's going to be that sophisticated in its messaging, but rescheduling, descheduling, and taking those steps and propping up the legitimate market it's proven that it helps to extinguish the illicit market over the years. So that follow.
I completely agree with that. I think if you actually go further and you start to think about the Farm Bill and the fact that you have this Rand Paul McConnell issue going on, you have Abbott saying, just wait and see. To the comment last week about why he voted against, you start to say, well, okay, how do you get at the illicit marijuana trade when you have hemp-derived THC products that could be theoretically commingled? How are you identifying the difference? So it would imply, again, I'm now putting on my rose-colored glasses, that if you want to have a comprehensive law and order reform to get at the illicit cartels, you'd better define the legal, when I say better, you should better define the legal activity that you want in this country. So perhaps, again, optimistic, maybe there's some commentary or some thread of reform around harmonizing the state legal business and the hemp-derived activities as well.
Yeah, hemp-derived activities are a big part of this, because I mean, there needs to be recognition from politicians and the powers that be that hemp-derived THC, cannabis-derived THC, it's the same molecule, and it's governed completely different because of two lines of words that just define it differently in the eyes of the feds. You've got Schedule 1, and then you've got the Farm Bill that essentially just allows it to exist.
So let's add the VA bill. I'm sorry. Let's add the VA bill.
The VA bill, which deems it medicine.
And you can't, and you can't let that get through reconciliation with it being a Schedule 1 substance, in my opinion.
Good point.
I think it's much more likely that survives reconciliation if you move to Schedule 3. And so, that's why, again, it's another piece in that mosaic that you have that in there. You have both houses having different versions of that. I'm optimistic.
Yeah. Read the tea leaves. And there's a lot of tea leaves right now that are going on.
So many.
Point to rescheduling being common sense.
Think where we are today and where we could be in 6 months. When's the deadline for that farm? March 2026, is it not?
I thought the extension was through to the fall, but I don't recall. Don't hold me.
I think it's coming up in like the end of next month or something with the Farm Bill.
Oh.
And the other thing, I mean, my gosh, we haven't even talked about the potential for a government shutdown and the showdown you're going to have on the Hill, which is going to take attention away, right? So if we all are hoping something happens in the next 2 weeks, depending what happens on on the funding side of Washington, D.C., we could see a complete pivot away from any sort of legislative activity or policy announcement and 100% focus on keeping the government running. So that's an important element here as we all think about what comes next.
Yeah, agreed. But at the end of the day, if something is announced in October, is that the worst thing? Like, I know we want something to announce the Friday before Labor Day weekend, but it's just, that's the angst that we're feeling right now, and many people in this industry. But they were hoping for an announcement at the end of last month. If not, in the first beginning of here is September, then people start to cast their doubts. But again, as we sit here and say all these moving parts, these are moving parts for a good reason. When you think about previous administrations, something was highlighted very minimally, and then you never heard about the topic ever again. But when you talk about what you guys just said, the Farm Bill, the Hemp side, the VA bill, the MORE Act, the Safer Banking, States 2.0, rescheduling, and then some of the parameters that are being done with the administration right now and the efforts that they're providing by going on location. Again, this feels like this is it's a priority, but the timing's got to make sense, right?
Yes. I'm sorry. I was going to say, Anthony, politically, we always talk about the Democrats using this topic and this industry as its political football and the constant rug pull, support us, support us, support. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. Right. Chuck Schumer and all the memes online. It's harder to say that the Republicans are really going to use this as a political football. I know it's popular with with a younger, I know the topic is popular with a younger demographic. Yeah. I'm not sure that it's a single policy issue, though, for a lot of those folks. So I'm not sure the Republicans are saying this is a way for us to win at the ballot box. It's a way to help at the ballot box.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I'm starting to feel like it's less of a political football for the Republicans than it is that tool from a law and order perspective. Whereas with the Democrats, they've certainly left us all feeling that it was purely a political football for them.
Yeah. Yeah. I see it more as a synergistic thing to play into law and order. And for them to just check off as a failure from the Democratic Party and move forward. Yeah. But I don't think cannabis is going to, being honest, if Donald Trump reschedules cannabis, I don't think he's going to get any more voters. I think the Republican Party will be seen as coming into the modern day society and like get out of the reefer madness and get out of the prohibitionist labels. But I don't think you're going to have anybody go vote Republican because they reschedule cannabis. But it adds, I think it adds to the calculus of, well, they're going more moderate versus going way to the other side of the spectrum.
You want to maintain those voters.
It all adds up.
You want to maintain those voters. That was a big swing amongst the 30 and under vote from 2020.
But I mean, if we're being real, if Donald Trump doesn't reschedule cannabis and they do use this as a political football, no one's not going to vote for him. They're not going to go vote for Gavin Newsom in 2028 for president because Donald Trump and the Republicans didn't reschedule cannabis. I think it's really good for optics. I think the messaging is going to be, this is another failure of the Biden administration. This is another failure of the Democratic Party, but being a true political issue, like something like abortion, that's going to sway voters. I don't buy into that whatsoever.
I agree.
I'm indifferent. I think an announcement like this only encourages that audience to vote in favor of them even more. But you're right. Anything could happen. You sit here and you talk about Gavin Newsom, but at the same time, too, look where Trump.
I just think the extremes are too big on each side, and both sides are smoking weed nowadays on the conservative and on the liberal.
Yeah.
So since we're pontificating, where it could really help politically would be if, again, tying it back to the crime. If they're doing the perp walks regularly next year, it's a way to remind people that policy implication is having a positive impact on society.
Yeah. Well said. Well, we took part in a Twitter space a couple of weeks ago, but I won't mention the names, but there was some pretty heavy dialogue about descheduling and how we need to create a 5% excise tax and how that funds ICE. Everyone can put two and two together as to who we're referring to. But, I think truthfully, there's some valid points in a lot of this stuff right now. But my whole take is like, look, we understand this space. We talk about it every single day. But for those that don't, these are incremental steps. And the first thing we need to obviously get these lawmakers is to look at cannabis in a different light. And what that is like, let's first label this as medicine, which many people do believe. Let's do the proper research. And then from there, we can start strategizing and looking at things differently and determine what we want to do from that. Would I love descheduling overnight? 100%, but that's not practical at this time.
I agree. I think we all believe that descheduling has tremendous benefits. First off, I respect anybody that wants to get out there and have a platform to talk about the industry in a responsible way, because the more dialogue, the more exposure, the more education we provide to people, which is a big part of what you guys do, is educating people, the better we are as an industry. However, we always used to criticize Booker for laying his body down on the tracks. Remember when he said, over my dead body will safe banking happen? And everybody was just so angry at him for getting in the way of that incremental step. And think about how many people have been debanked, how many people have been harmed because we didn't get that reform. And so now here we are having the opportunity of getting incremental reform, and to do something that would get in the way of that because you say, no, it's going to be descheduling or nothing. I mean, that to me is it shortchanges everybody who's going to benefit from that incremental step. There are so many businesses across this industry and across this country that desperately need that 280E relief for their financials. The employees need to be able to get that, so maybe they can get to safe banking, so they can get a mortgage, so that they can improve their credit profile, so that they can have the right tracking for their installment debt. There's so many other benefits to it, that why can't we have that incremental reform and then continue to go on to deschedule later on? So that's my view. That's my opinion.
Incremental steps. You said that. Where was that? We were at in Florida. There was that congressman in the crowd, Anthony, and you whispered in my ear. It was about the industry as a whole wanting change, and we were asking for so much, and it's all about incremental steps.
Oh, that was Dean. You talking about Jason Wildhouse?
Yes, that's where it was.
Yeah, that was Dean Phillips. That was Dean Phillips.
Yeah,
that was a fundraiser for Dean Phillips right after during Benzinga.
When I hear people from the industry say we might as well just ask for it, off the top, meaning full descheduling, but that's what got us into trouble.
We are asking for it, though. I mean, that's what the States 2.0 Act is. I mean, if you really go by Ron Wyden's bill, that does the same thing. The mechanisms are there. I mean, the plane's been built, but I don't think we go from. It's too radical. You're not going to go from S1 prohibition for the last 50 years to descheduling as just the first logical step.
Agreed.
I would love it. There's nothing more than I would like to see that happen. But I mean, I'd like to think I would live somewhat in reality.
Shane did a nice job laying out just the practicality of the legal mechanism to make that happen. Yeah. So you already have the recommendation for Schedule 3. How do you get HHS to now take that back without any incremental research, by the way, and recommend descheduling? So it's not going to be an HHS recommendation. Now it would have to actually be legislation.
Yeah.
We can't even get safe banking passed. No. How are you going to deschedule cannabis? It's just the votes are not there. They're just not that reality.
I do think that there's a good chance that RFK starts to do more research, more in depth, to ultimately give them firepower to deschedule cannabis, because he was a proponent for descheduling before he was within the administration. I mean, he knows
that's years in the making.
Oh yeah, that's way down the road.
I don't know if that'll ever come to fruition. I think he's a big backer of psychedelics, but this guy's been sober for I don't know how many years. He lost his wife to mental health, and quite honestly, the psychedelic portion saved his son's life. And I can tell you, if the AA meetings, they frown upon cannabis consumption from a recreational standpoint. I don't buy into that. But I do think the psychedelic platform is definitely going to pick up some momentum underneath him, because there's some real hardcore data that's being produced, and there's incredible efficacy that's being produced as well. So you can't argue that, but we got to get to that point, and the only way we get there on the cannabis side is to announce rescheduling and to get
descheduling. I don't necessarily agree with you that descheduling implies recreational use. I mean, if you're looking at cannabinoids as a whole, CBN, CBG, THCV, I mean, all of those substances will be more accessible under descheduling, which is going to increase accessibility. And those people are using those substances with THC added for wellness. They're not using it as for recreational purposes. I mean, that's where cannabis is going to become a full wellness product. And I mean, they can even start using it in analgesics as replacements for Tylenol and Advil.
Yeah.
Descheduling gets us closer to a normalization of plant-based medicine.
Yeah.
It doesn't get us really just for recreational use about cannabis, because like I said, most people are using this stuff for wellness.
Yeah.
And you also forget, if you deschedule, now it can be widely available. Now you have to squarely be in the FDA, right? You want to talk about nutraceuticals and you want to talk about wellness
Correct.
products. You're now squarely in the FDA, which means if you're going to be in the FDA, you're going to have to up the FDA budget in order to regulate that. And I just don't see this administration saying deschedule, number one. But even if they did, I don't see them then saying, oh, and we're going to raise the federal budget to make the FDA bigger so it could regulate this.
Okay.
And,
All right.
and I don't see them saying deschedule and let it be unregulated.
Seeing some comments here. Yes, Anthony, thank you. So for people that have the perception that, deschedule is all about recreational use, kind of like the way alcohol is when you're enjoying a football game or something like that. What's the misconception that you best explain, Anthony Varrell, on what descheduling means to you and what maybe people are, looking at this the wrong way, including myself?
It's the use case. People use alcohol to get fucked up. There's nothing else to do with alcohol except get drunk. Zero. You don't drink alcohol. I mean, I guess some people do because they want better sleep, but that's a very slippery slope. Like, cannabinoids are wellness. Cannabis is wellness. Like, people really aren't going and getting marijuana to get stoned out of their minds and do something. People want it for use-based needs: sleep, pain relief, take the edge off, and use it analogous to alcohol. But alcohol has one use, and it's, like I said, it's get drunk and get fucked up. Like, cannabis isn't that. It's nowhere near that. And descheduling almost acknowledges that, because you're increasing the accessibility. You're saying it should be just as widely available as a nutraceutical. And minor cannabinoids, they probably should be nutraceuticals and on that same plane moving forward.
Yeah.
Hell, THC, even to a certain extent, should be. But
Yeah.
I don't think cannabis is analogous to alcohol in terms of use case whatsoever. They couldn't be more different.
Yeah. Let's now switch. Before I let you go, Anthony Coniglio, I want to bring something up. You're a former Wall Street executive, and I brought this conversation or topic up with Seth Yakutin that was on a couple of weeks ago, but I'd like to get your feedback as well. We're going to see a rally here in the market. When a rescheduling announcement, we already saw kind of a glimpse of that here in the summer months, and everything's kind of like retracting a little bit because, again, self-doubt is now coming into play. We're angst. We're waiting for an announcement. When an announcement actually makes, I do believe a lot of the institution out of Canada is going to drive this market. There's going to be a lot of retail optimism. Yes, rescheduling does not answer the questions about institutions coming in and buying a lot of these stocks. But then when you have some of these conversations, people kind of sit here with a smirk and say, yeah, the institutions are going to be buying cannabis, even on a rescheduling announcement. Can that happen? Will that happen? Like, how do you see the markets performing pertaining to this industry in the U.S. once an announcement is actually made?
I think it'll continue to be a sell the news industry. I think of it as a J curve. I think it'll be a sell the news industry. Perhaps you'll get that jump up and you'll get it to run a little bit. And then you'll see kind of this sell the news. And then that bottom of the bell will be bottom of the curve before it makes that long trajectory upward is going to be when there's custody, right? Because institutions could want to come in. The issue is custody. Okay. So, we talk to investors where they say, I get the NewLake story. I like the NewLake story. I love it. I want to buy it, but I can't custody the stock with Pershing or with Goldman or with JP Morgan or Credit Suisse, whoever your prime broker is. And so it's going to take that custody as just one element. Number two, the institutions aren't sitting there watching their screens, waiting for rescheduling the way a lot of us in the industry are and saying, I'm all ready to go. No, once it happens, then they'll go do their write-up. They'll go into the investment committee. There's a process at many institutions.
Agreed.
They'll do the investment committee. They'll make the presentation. They'll get the approval. They'll make sure custody, and custody isn't easy in this industry. it requires some additional reform, like safer banking with the right safe harbor. Or you have to move to a platform that will custody it. So it takes time for these institutions to do the analysis, do the valuation, identify what stocks they want to pursue. I think they're keeping track of it now, but not to the extent where you're going to see, I think, large scale buy, and accumulation, right? Because it's not just buying. It's the follow through. It's the accumulation over a period of time that really has that sustained move upwards in stocks.
Agreed.
It's not just somebody who says, oh, I think this is going to be a good trade. Let me jump in and buy 80,000 shares of MSOS. Like, you'll get some of that. But for this industry, we need a long-term sustained bid for the stocks. And that's going to only come with meaningful institutional investment. And I think that just takes a little bit more time after the announcement.
Yeah. What do you think of the news about Curaleaf being added to the TSX S&P index?
It's fantastic. I mean, anything that gets this industry greater exposure that's positive is fantastic for this industry. Really is.
Yeah. Very promising.
What do you think we got on the FOMC this week?
Oh,
25 or
25.
50?
I think 25. Yeah, I'd be surprised. The reason I don't think they'll do 50 is because if they do 50, I think it'll scare people to thinking that there's a bigger problem than there is. I think they could do 25. They have another meeting in October. I think the question for October is going to be, what do they do there? Because they don't have a November meeting. They don't meet again until December. And so we'll have to watch the data between now and the October meeting, because that's where I think they could go to 50 basis points and say, hey, we would have done something in November and we want to keep cadence. But I'm betting 25 for this week's move.
Okay. And one other thing from this morning. So I'm assuming you saw Trump announce that he's pushing for capital markets to go to 6-month conference calls versus quarterly. Do you think that would be advantageous for you, especially with what you're doing right now? Or do you prefer to relay to the market every quarter with what's going on with the business?
Well, like many things with Donald Trump, I think we need to understand what exactly he means by that. I like transparency. I think transparency is important to the markets. I think it's important for companies to provide transparency about their business operations and how the business is doing on a regular basis, such as quarterly. But there are certain activities that you have to go through as a public company on a quarterly basis that sometimes creates expense and has marginal, if any, benefit to the actual investor. And if anything, you could argue that the incremental expense is a detriment to the valuation for the investor. And so if he's saying that companies shouldn't be accountable to the investors, but every 6 months, I'd rather speak to our investors on a quarterly basis and provide some indications. But if he's saying maybe some of the SEC requirements for the quarterly filings, maybe some of those can be less rigorous, well, I'd be interested in seeing the details on that.
That's a good point.
Did you guys see the news about Verano this morning too, about proposed redomiciling the parent from British Columbia to, is it Nevada, if I'm correct?
Nevada.
What do you think?
And I saw Anthony's tweet that expect to see more of that. I thought it was, I thought it was interesting. I mean, go ahead, Anthony.
What is the move?
I think it's interesting. I think it's plays into the Made in America narrative. I mean, I think it also is foreshadowing for investors moving forward. Like I said, I also think you're going to see most of the tier ones redomicile in the United States and come out of Canada because that I think it's about time.
Yeah.
There's also Nevada too has certain levels of privacy around what the companies needed to disclose, as well as voting rights to a certain extent, which I needed to look into more. That I saw was someone did a write-up on it earlier.
A few psychedelic companies have done the same too. So you can understand that Made in America. You want to get on that board and run that rocket ship, you better make sure that you have all your affairs in order and everything's made in America, with your office being in the U.S. Because that's one thing very bluntly clear, is that this is how he operates and views things, and America comes first, which I totally get. So anyway, just need you to sign off on this sponsorship letter that I'm about to finish, and hopefully I'll be over and become a neighbor of yours, Anthony Coniglio, in the next 6 months. What do you think?
We'd love to have you. You've been a great neighbor, but we'd love to have you here.
Yeah, I would love to. Well, let's hope that's the case. And man, I've been out to your neck of the woods in the summertime. What an incredible place to live, along the East Coast there. I was out with the, how far is that from Boston where you're at?
I am about 2.5 hours to 3 hours from Boston. Yeah.
Nice.
New England's a beautiful area. This
Yep.
time of year is just stunning into the fall all year long. I love it. It's why I live here.
Yeah. I noticed some highlights yesterday when they were playing. Was it the Dolphins, Pats and Dolphins yesterday?
Yes, the Dolphins.
Yeah.
Yep.
Patriots and Dolphins.
Who was the guy? Had the punt return. Everyone was going nuts. And then on the ensuing kickoff,
another punt return.
The Dolphins,
New England
Dolphins suck.
But Mike Vrabel, the head coach, was running down the field. I was like, "Jeepers, put some pads on this guy."
Yeah, he's been. Go ahead, Anthony.
Dolphins suck. That's all I watched.
They should be. Come on, they have some really quality talent. It's underperforming. It's just underperforming. I was surprised. I thought they would have done better. But listen, you got to love Vrabel. You got to love the energy. He's a Hall of Famer for the Patriots. He was so phenomenal as a player. He's bringing that same energy and enthusiasm to his coaching. And that's got to fire up a team to see your coach running down the sideline like that.
Yeah. All in all, before we let you go, if you're looking at this space, you're interested in this space, this is not investment advice, but what can you share with our audience to say like, hey, let's get rid of some of this angst and everything's fine. Or I should say, I don't want to say everything's fine. I don't want to say everything's bad, but you got to be smart with the approaches that you take here. But how would you best describe the current state of the industry right now?
I think when you're looking particularly at this sector and the volatility that's here, I think you have to decide before you make a single investment, are you an investor or are you a trader?
Yeah.
Because there's very, very different ways to play this industry if you're one or the other. If you're an investor, you have to do a ton of fundamental analysis and really understand the industry, where it is, where it's going. Listen to the people that come on this show. This is not just a pan for you, but you guys do have great guests. It's a phenomenal place for people to come and educate themselves and see the differences in businesses. And if you're a trader, then you have to really understand the catalysts and what's going to drive moves up and move down. And some of it is really just plain old psychology with some of the PTSD that investors in this sector have. And when you don't get follow through, like Trump setting up the expectation for a few weeks to have an announcement, you don't get the follow through. You could see the PTSD just dripping in the stock prices and the sell-off that's ensued.
Good to know. I'm also very happy to, I'm sure you'll be happy to hear this, but our old good friend, everything's old is new again, Rob Seacrest is going to be coming on our live stream this Wednesday. So I know that you guys have talked quite a bit in the past, some similar business models, but a little bit different, I should say, but understanding the real estate side of the industry, but he's coming back. He'll be on our live stream as well. We're doing a pre-record Wednesday afternoon with Senator Rand Paul. So we've got him, Rob Seacrest. What else? We got a conversation with the executive vice president of Medicals.com. Got Raj Grover
tomorrow.
And we've got the senior executive team from Organigram coming up on Friday. So look,
and we have Verano too.
We got Verano too. Oh
yeah, you get to ask him about the move. But what are you going to ask Rand Paul?
Where do you begin?
Where do you
Sir,
begin?
do you know the difference between cannabis-derived THC and hemp-derived THC?
Yeah.
Please, let's just kick the conversation off there.
Do you like gas station weed? Do you want children to buy gas station weed?
Yeah. I mean, we had a pretty good conversation.
You can't ask that question to him.
No, not at all. Not at all. We've learned how to speak to politicians with our trips to DC.
Of course,
yeah. That have been super insightful. But I mean, it's a function of, do you actually understand what's going on? Because when you look at the hemp industry, like I keep saying, there's a lot of very good operators in the space. There's a lot of people that operate with integrity and want to sell quality product to people. And then you have THCA flower that's completely opened the floodgates for illicit product to just flow into the market and just transact. That is a problem. Are you aware of that problem, or have you been educated on that problem? If not, would love to educate you on that problem.
Yeah.
I mean, and what is the grand picture for the regulatory framework for the hemp industry? Because seed to sale tracking might be a pretty good place to start. With all of the product and just take it from there. The infrastructure too. I mean, there needs to be infrastructure that's put in place and regulated for the hemp industry. It's got a long way to go, but I mean, they're taking steps to clean it up. And
I would love
Texas
to
is going to set
know.
the precedent.
I would love to know what he wants his end game to be for marijuana policy.
Correct.
Is
Marijuana
it a harmonized
policy.
right for
Yeah.
marijuana policy? Is it a harmonized policy between the state legal activities today and the hemp activities, or does he see them as separate industries? My bet is he's probably going to fall back on farmers,
Correct.
and not not harming farmers. But the best way to not harm farmers is to have a very clear and coherent policy so that they can't get caught in the in-between like they are today.
Correct.
Well-
but see, that I think that argument's valid, but at the same time, those hemp farmers can still exist because they're going to grow their crop. They're going to extract it down to CBD, and then we're going to chemically convert that CBD into D9 THC, and then it goes into hemp products. They're completely fine, and they can completely coexist, as long as we're all brought under one umbrella and it's all governed in the same way as per the THC molecule. So yeah, the farmer argument, I think it's valid, but I think it's got holes. If you really want to talk about it from a nuanced industry perspective, with how those farmers could still exist.
Well, the idea is to frame and build up this whole hemp narrative, especially with Senator McConnell. And then at the end is tie this all in, because something that he's been behind, which is safe banking for the better course of, I don't know, when did he get behind safe banking? Has it been 10 years, Anthony?
Safe banking's been around for 10 years. I don't know when Rand came on.
Long time.
Paul came on in terms of co-sponsoring the bill.
Yeah, it's been a long time. That's for sure. And I think that's the most important thing is once we actually build this up and he gives kind of his take and feedback on the hemp side of things, we all know that all roads leads to the same outcome in a lot of ways pertaining to hemp and cannabis, and how these two could interject with each other, and in a regulated market, like what is his long-term vision. So anyway, that's coming up later this week. We'll keep you all posted. Most likely going to be...
We can also use those farmers' hemp crop for hempcrete, textiles, rope, things the Farm Bill intended.
Yes.
That have industrial applications.
Well, take them back to one of the early, I forget which currency. I think it was the $10 bill. Back in revolutionary times, one of our early forms of currency actually had a hemp picture on it, had a hemp plant on it. And so it reminds him that the legacy of hemp / marijuana, by the way, the same molecule as you put it, does have its roots in colonial America as a textile.
Yeah.
Well, big week coming up. Always love checking in with you. I love these conversations where we have kind of an outline as to what we're going to discuss, and then we go completely off script, and it's just a great conversation. But more importantly, it gets great feedback as to what many investors are thinking right now. So we always appreciate the dialogue based on what you do now, what you're seeing and hearing on a day-to-day basis. And then as well, always with your background in Wall Street, just when you're looking at things from a pure investment standpoint. So all in all, great conversation, and love checking in with you. And let's keep in touch. Okay, my friend?
Thanks, fellas. Appreciate the time.
Thanks,
good talking to you. Have a great week and good luck this week.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Anyway, that was a great show and great feedback. And yeah, now that I was reading all these interviews, I'm like, we have a hell of a busy week this week with a lot of people, don't we?
We do. My calendar is chock full.
All right. We got some interesting conversations and comments, including one guy who likes to promote his own YouTube channel on our channel.
That's 420 Media Agency. People that don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, as we said off the top, Anthony described right now, the sentiment is a lot of angst in the industry, but we keep having these conversations day in and day out, try to level expectations and keep people informed, and really in a lot of ways being patient. This is what the whole meaning of patient means every single week that we're trying to have these live streams to you people. That look, it does feel different. There is a lot of conversation. There's a lot of groundwork being laid out. Timing, though, we don't know what the answer is. This makes sense timing wise, to do something before the end of the calendar year at some point this fall. So let's all just be patient and realize that we are on the cusp of history. We just got to be a little bit more patient here. But if anyone thinks that it's not going to happen, I don't agree with that. I definitely think something is going to happen, but I can't tell you when it's going to be, whether it's 1 or 2 weeks. I firmly believe that it's something will happen probably, at some point this fall. So let's all be patient and make sure you stay connected with us. In the meantime, AV, good chat here today. And I'll see you back here tomorrow. Raj,
Brian is correct. The farmers need to have the applicability to use the entire plant. That is very important, and that is how they stay in business.
Yeah. Boys. Anyways, that's it for today. And thanks for checking, everybody. We'll see you back here Wednesday at 4. And then make sure you stay connected as well. Smash on that bell for all notifications, because we got a lot of great high-profile pre-record videos coming out this week too. So make sure you check us out. Log on, leave your comments, any feedback, any questions. Leave us even on the community page as well. If there's any questions you want us to ask. Verano we got this week. Raj Grover tomorrow. Senator Rand Paul. We've got Organigram coming up. We have a great conversation come up later this week with the executive vice president of edibles.com. Big market opportunity for edibles right now, especially when you look at some of the language. Yeah. I know it's not into law, but when we think about some of the stuff from last week with Governor Greg Abbott, that's interesting on how that stuff is moving too. So these are all happening this week. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your day. We'll see you back here Wednesday at 4. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
So what'd you think of all that information? Some interesting stuff that we just learned once again here at the TDR Traded Black podcast. Let's keep the conversation going. So leave your comments below. We'd love to get your feedback. As usual, if you have time, make sure to like, subscribe, and smash on that bell for all notifications. And stay connected with us here at the Trade to Black podcast. Thanks for watching, everyone.